Hi, I'm Katie Wilson and welcome to A News. Here are the headlines. Trump says there will be a full ceasefire pretty soon in Russia-Ukraine war.
Young people, and they're not American people, they're Russian and...
Israel strikes Lebanon after first rocket attack since ceasefire. Boxing legend George Foreman, a two-time heavyweight champion, has died at the age of 76. US President Donald Trump said on Friday he believes a full ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine will happen soon, as negotiations over territorial divisions continue. His remarks come amid accusations between Russia and Ukraine over an attack on a Russian gas station near the border. The US has been pushing for a pause on strikes targeting energy infrastructure.
I think we have the confines of a deal. I hope we have the confines of a deal. Thousands of young people, and they're not American people, they're Russian and they're Ukrainian, are being killed every week, thousands a week. And also the United States has paid, because of Biden, $350 billion on a war that should have never happened. If we had a competent president and this sitting right here, that war would have never happened. It would have absolutely never happened with me. And it didn't happen for 4 years. NATO is something that I saved. NATO was gone until I came along. So NATO is solid, they're strong, but they have to treat us fairly.
Are we going to give up the...
Because look, without us, NATO is not the same.
US President Donald Trump unveiled a multi-billion-dollar plan to build a sixth-generation stealth fighter jet. Pentagon officials hope that the new warplane, which will take a decade to fully develop, will help deter China as it expands its military capabilities. Ubi Shabandar has more from Washington, D.C.
President Donald Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth announced on Friday a $20 billion contract to build what will be the world's most advanced fighter jet, the F-47. 47, of course, refers to President Trump being the 47th president of the United States. The U.S. Air Force awarded the contract to American company Boeing, which will be responsible for designing and producing a sixth-generation fighter jet that will include stealth capabilities, advanced sensors, and cutting-edge engines. The F-47 will include the novel capability of fighting alongside unmanned drones that would accompany and communicate with the fighter jet, which would come off the production line sometime in the 2030s. The F-47 program will be designed to deter China, specifically in the Pacific, and ensure that U.S. air dominance is ahead of its adversaries. The plane will eventually replace the U.S. Air Force's F-22 Raptor stealth fighter. Speaking to reporters on Friday, President Trump said that the F-47 will be, quote, the most advanced, most capable, most lethal plane ever built. Enemies will never see it coming. Ubi Shabandar, A News, Washington, D.C.
Greenland has recorded a significant surge in the number of tourists visiting the island. Latest data shows a 14% increase in the number of passengers on international flights, alongside a rise in hotel bookings.
The country, located in the Arctic Ocean, has been experiencing a surge in tourism as people flock to the islands. These new numbers are attributed to the opening of a new international airport in Nuuk in November last year. However, some tour operators in the country credit this growth to US President Donald Trump's thrusting the Arctic island in the global spotlight when he threatened to annex it, a statement which has been vehemently rejected by the country's government.
And already now we are getting much more bookings that we have received earlier, especially because of a man with the last name of Trump has really put Greenland on the map once again.
One of them being tourism, the other one being mining industry. For both of them, they need easy access. So it's a very, very deliberate step by building the airports to start making the infrastructure ready so that we can start growing a tourism sector.
Some tourists also echoed this sentiment, agreeing that the international attention on Greenland was part of its appeal.
It was one of the last parts of the world I haven't seen, actually. So it was on my bucket list. So that's why I want to come here. And also, of course, it's a part of Denmark. So I thought I have to see it, of course. So yeah. And now with all the tension going on, you don't know what's happened next week, or if it's another flag up here or whatever they decide to do.
It was actually my son who wanted to go here. We had talked about Tromsø instead because we would see the Northern Lights. But then he saw that would open a direct route to Nuuk, and we settled for that.
The world's biggest island boasts home to enormous ice sheets, glaciers, deep fjords, and an abundance of marine life, including whales, while maintaining and showcasing its local Inuit culture as its major attractions. It also possesses a vast wealth of rare earth minerals critical for high-tech industries.
Flights at Britain's Heathrow Airport resumed late Friday after a massive fire at a nearby substation knocked out power, forcing a full-day shutdown of Europe's busiest airport. The fire erupted Thursday night, leading to at least 120 flight diversions and widespread travel disruption. Crews worked through the night to restore operations, with the first British Airways flight landing at 6 p.m. UK time. Heathrow advises passengers to check with airlines as recovery efforts continue. The drastic reduction in aid distribution in Gaza has worsened the situation in the region, according to the Senior Deputy Director of UNRWA Affairs in Gaza. Sam Rose says that no aid has entered Gaza for 19 days, the longest period since the start of the conflict. As a result, the progress made during the ceasefire is being reversed, with critical shortages of supplies like flour and fuel.
This all comes against a backdrop of no supplies having entered Gaza since the beginning of March, so for about 19 days. So this is the longest period since the start of the conflict back in October 2023, when no supplies whatsoever have entered Gaza. That's supplies of aid, commercial supplies, but also fuel, which keeps everything going.
Israel has carried out airstrikes on Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon, targeting rocket launchers and a command centre. The attacks followed a rocket barrage fired into Israel, the first since a ceasefire agreement in November. Israeli forces struck multiple sites in response, with Lebanon's state media reporting one fatality from the attacks. Meanwhile, the Israel Defense Forces said 3 rockets were intercepted over the northern town of Metula, with no reported injuries. No group has claimed responsibility for the rocket fire. Lebanon's Prime Minister has cautioned against the country being drawn into a wider conflict. Now, joining us live from Beirut in Lebanon is Arthur Bloch, founder and editor-in-chief of influential news platform The Liberum. Thanks for joining us, Arthur. So, talk me through what's happening on the ground now.
Well, let's first recap the situation of the past, let's say, 6-7 weeks. Every day we saw some minor attacks from Israel on supposedly Hezbollah positions. Now, Hezbollah has been denying all involvement in what it's in the past days. They say it's not us. We stand 100% behind the state, and we are aligned with the state and how to deal with Israel. So I was in South Lebanon this morning, visited my father-in-law, and it's not that the situation flared up and that it's a war zone again. It's just, you know, it could be that there were some rogue factions on the ground. They say, look, we have some rockets here, let's fire them, and that's what happens. I mean, possibilities. And I don't see anything escalating because, you know, the Lebanese army is doing a great job in the past weeks since the signing of the ceasefire, and they're taking over new positions. So it's very interesting to see what happened this weekend, but I'm not alarmed.
So obviously we're seeing the IDF attacking Hezbollah targets on a daily basis. So what's next for Hezbollah and for Lebanon as a country?
Well, to be frank, I mean, Hezbollah is finished. The military infrastructure is no more. What we see now are the remnants of a very let's say, well-organized infrastructure. There are some spots here and there where they have some munition. That's my estimation, of course. I don't have any military intelligence. But what you can see now is that they are trying to find a need. Obviously, they cannot demand from other parties in Lebanon that they listen to them. So, what I'm seeing in the past weeks is quite hopeful from my perspective. It looks like they have, let's say, accepted that they are not what they were before. And what they're seeing now is that the whole infrastructure is being dismantled on a daily basis. So what I see happening, if I analyze it from afar, is you see in the morning there's some suspicious movement. Probably the drones or the Lebanese army is giving a signal to the army, to the IDF, and then there's a small attack, and then you see the Lebanese army rolling in, taking up new positions, and they have been now in locations they have not been in the past 30 years. So, and if you look at what's happening now in Beirut, you see a new modus of, let's say, hopefulness. It looks like things are calming down, like there's a government that's of reorganizing some things that have been ignored for the past years. So everything looks promising.
Really interesting insight there. Thanks so much for joining us, Arthur.
Thank you, and always nice to be on the show.
Now, in Peru, thousands of citizens took to the streets of Lima on Friday to protest a growing wave of violence and insecurity across the country. This follows the recent assassination of popular singer Paul Flores. The protests have triggered political changes, with Congress voting to remove the Interior Minister and declaring a state of emergency.
Thousands of Peruvian citizens and artists gathered in the streets of Lima on Friday, protesting the rise in extortion, threats and violence. This follows the tragic assassination of beloved cumbia singer Paul Flores. The killing occurred on March 16th when Flores was shot dead while travelling with his bandmates on a bus. The band's manager has blamed a criminal gang for the attack. The artists demand immediate government action to address the crisis.
I and my children have been assaulted while parking my car by 4 armed men, and this is every Peruvian's daily life. We don't know if we will be robbed when we get out, if they will kill you for your cell phone or your camera, or if you will be extorted.
I feel insecure not only as an artist, but as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister. I feel very insecure. I am scared of going out, and it shouldn't be like this. We live in fear, in constant fear. This is not living.
In response, President Dina Boluarte declared a state of emergency on March 17th, deploying military personnel to assist the police. She also announced an increase in police operations, resulting in the capture of nearly 1,000 suspects.
To those who have justly marched today, I also want to tell them not to be fooled by dark forces. We lament the death of the singer from Armonia 10.
The unrest has led to significant political shifts. On Friday morning, Peru's Congress voted to remove Interior Minister Juan José Santibáñez, citing his failure to address the escalating violence. The no-confidence vote passed with 78 votes in favour, 11 against and 20 abstentions. Santibáñez, who served for just 10 months, accepted the decision, saying he had worked hard with law enforcement. Despite these efforts, public anger remains high. Peru is experiencing a 35% increase in homicides in 2024, with over 2,000 reported deaths.
A volcano on Indonesia's Flores Island erupted from Thursday night into Friday, sending ash clouds over 8 kilometres high. The alert level was raised to its highest, while the exact number of injured remains unknown.
The Lewatobi Laki-Laki volcano in Indonesia erupted late Thursday night. It sent thick ash clouds more than 8 kilometres into the sky. 2 more eruptions followed on Friday, along with smaller volcanic activity. The explosion was so strong that people heard it from 85 kilometres away. In a nearby village, falling ash mixed with rain and turned into thick mud covering the streets. A man was injured when ash fell on his roof. He slipped and landed on burning wood. He was taken to the hospital with burns. Authorities are still checking the full impact of the eruption. Some airlines cancelled flights between Australia and Bali. Other flights, both domestic and international, were delayed. The eruption followed a week of increased seismic activity, with hundreds of small earthquakes recorded. Experts warn that heavy rain could cause lava to flow into nearby rivers. Indonesia has 120 active volcanoes and sits on the Ring of Fire, an area with frequent earthquakes and eruptions. In 2024, the same volcano erupted, killing at least 9 people and forcing thousands to leave their homes. After that disaster, authorities plan to move people away from the danger zone permanently. Officials are now asking residents to stay alert as the volcano remains active.
Boxing legend George Foreman, a 2-time heavyweight champion, has died at the age of 76. His family confirmed his death, though the cause of death has not been immediately disclosed.
George Foreman, a 2-time heavyweight champion, died on Friday at the age of 76. His family announced the news in the post on Instagram. No cause of death was given. Known for his powerful punch, Foreman first became champion in 1973, defeating Joe Frazier. He later lost the title to Muhammad Ali in their famous Rumble in the Jungle in 1974. Born in Marshall, Texas in 1949, Foreman rose from a difficult childhood, marked by poverty and the challenges of the segregated South. He found a way out through the Job Corps, where his boxing career took off. At just 19, he won a gold medal in the 1968 Olympics. He then turned pro, winning 37 straight matches. His first loss came in the infamous fight with Ali, but he retired in 1977 after a second loss. During that time, he became an ordained minister in the church. In 1987, at 143 kilograms, he made a surprising return to boxing to raise money for a youth centre he founded. He won 24 straight matches, eventually becoming the oldest heavyweight champion at 45 when he knocked out Michael Moorer in 1994. Foreman retired in 1997 with a career record of 76 wins and 5 losses. After boxing, Foreman became a successful pitchman, most notably for the George Foreman Grill. In 1999, he earned $137.5 million when the grill company paid him to endorse the product.
Glaciers are melting at an alarming rate, and for the first time, UNESCO is marking World Glacier Day to highlight the crisis. Our correspondent Ross Cullen reports from the UNESCO headquarters in Paris.
Well, we're here at UNESCO, the headquarters in Paris of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, where this Friday they are marking the first ever World Glacier Day. World Water Day will be marked on the 22nd of March, but they believed it was important to start marking World Glacier Day to highlight the danger that ice sheets and glaciers are facing around the world. 2 reports being released to coincide with this day. First from the World Meteorological Organization, and they are saying that 5 of the past 6 years have seen the most rapid glacier retreats on record. Celeste Saulo, she's the Secretary General of the WMO. She's been saying that preservation of glaciers is not just an environmental or societal or economic necessity, it is a matter of survival. And one key number that came out of that report, 273 billion tons of ice is being lost on Earth every year. That's equivalent to the amount of water everyone on Earth drinks in 30 years, assuming 3 litres per person per year. Now, there's been another report that's been released to coincide with World Glacier Day. Here it is. It is the World Water Development Report from UNESCO, and they've been saying that retreating glaciers threaten the food and water supply of 2 billion people worldwide. 2/3 of the world's irrigated agriculture will be impacted by receding glaciers, and Secretary General Audrey Azoulay said, quote, "Regardless of where we live, we all depend in some way on mountains and glaciers. These natural water towers are in imminent peril." Now, the exhibition that UNESCO have put on to mark the day is behind me. You can see some of the pictures that have been put up. There's also an interactive globe where you can see around the world ice sheets and glaciers that are in danger. Dagu in China, Mount Kenya and Kilimanjaro in East Africa, Calderone in Italy, Sarenne here in France, and also neighbouring Azerbaijan, Georgia, where the Gergeti Glacier is listed as critically endangered. Ross Cullen, A News in Paris.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan celebrated Nowruz, expressing that at the May summit in Hungary, they will propose making Nowruz a shared day of celebration for the Turkic world.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has proposed declaring March 21st as Spring and Brotherhood Day in Turkey and as a shared holiday for the Turkic world. Speaking at Nowruz celebrations, Erdogan announced his intention to submit the proposal to Parliament. He emphasised the significance of Nowruz as a unifying tradition and expressed readiness to make it an official holiday.
We believe the time has come to celebrate Nowruz together, which is a public holiday in some brotherly countries under the umbrella of the Organisation of Turkic States, just as we celebrate Turkish Cooperation Day every year on October 3rd. May the 21st of March bring goodness and blessings. At the summit in Hungary in May, we will propose celebrating Nowruz as the shared day of remembrance and celebration for the Turkic world.
As Nowruz celebrations gain more significance, its meaning as a symbol of renewal, unity and common values is expected to enhance the solidarity among Turkic nations.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that Turkey would not tolerate any threats to public order, and he vowed to stand firm against vandalism and street violence amid growing protests against the detention of Istanbul's mayor. Ankara has warned against calls for street protests from the main opposition.
İstanbul'daki bir yolsuzluk operasyonu bahane edilerek
We are witnessing that they are trying to cause turmoil on our streets by using a corruption operation in Istanbul as an excuse. First of all, we will not allow a handful of incompetent, ambitious ones to go attack our people's peace, to provoke our people, to terrorize and cause worry in Turkey, just to not disrupt their prosperity, interest, and to damage their profiteering and looting scheme.
terörize ve tedirgin etmeye çalışmasına göz yummayacağımızın bilinmesini istiyorum. Bakın çok açık ve net söylüyorum.
I am saying very openly and clearly, the street that the Republican People's Party leader has called you to is a dead-end street. Do not forget.
Hırsızlığı
His pointing to the street to defend theft, thievery, unlawfulness, fraud, instead of the courtroom, is a grave irresponsibility. How saddening is it that the Republican People's Party, under the direction of the current administration, is quickly losing its quality of being a party that does politics on a legitimate basis due to its asymmetric relations it has built with illegal organizations, the corruption it has sunk in up to its neck, its attitudes that encourage putschists, its problematic discourse that incites street terrorism.
sorunlu söylemleri sebebiyle meşru zeminde
Turkish authorities have detained 343 people during overnight protests in 9 cities, including Istanbul, Ankara and Izmir, amid growing unrest over an investigation into the Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality. The demonstrations were linked to an ongoing probe led by the Istanbul Chief Public Prosecutor's Office. The Turkish Interior Minister stated that authorities would not tolerate any attempts to disrupt public order or threaten national security. He stressed that law enforcement would take a firm stance against any efforts to incite unrest or provoke tensions. He also highlighted the crucial role of police officers in maintaining stability and ensuring public safety. Armenia is planning a constitutional referendum in 2027, with potential implications for both domestic politics and regional stability. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has outlined the government's agenda for constitutional changes. The move comes amid ongoing peace negotiations with Azerbaijan, which has called for the removal of territorial claims from Armenia's constitution.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has announced plans to hold a nationwide vote on adopting a new constitution in 2027. In an interview with Armenian public television, Pashinyan stated that constitutional changes are part of the government's agenda and are set for 2027. He noted that some members of the ruling party believe the process should coincide with the 2026 parliamentary elections to give the political agenda more clarity. While he described it as an internal political matter, he acknowledged that the changes could have regional and global implications. Pashinyan has previously emphasized his political goal of creating a new constitution that would be more closely connected to the citizens of Armenia. Azerbaijan has repeatedly insisted that a peace agreement with Armenia requires removing obstacles, including territorial claims in Armenia's constitution and Yerevan's position on the OSCE Minsk group. In September 2024, Pashinyan suggested that constitutional amendments might be necessary to facilitate a peace deal with Azerbaijan. In a national address on February 19th, he stressed the importance of holding a nationwide referendum to approve the new constitution.
The UN Commission on the Status of Women has adopted a resolution initiated by Azerbaijan. The resolution is named Liberation of Women and Children Taken Hostage in Armed Conflicts, including those subsequently detained, and it marks a pivotal step in protecting vulnerable civilians during times of war.
The United Nations Commission on the Status of Women adopted a landmark resolution initiated by Azerbaijan during its 69th session at the UN headquarters on March 21st. The resolution addresses a critical issue: the liberation of women and children taken hostage in armed conflicts, including those subsequently detained. Azerbaijan's permanent mission to the UN confirmed that this biennial resolution has been introduced since 1994, focusing on the protection of vulnerable civilians, particularly women and children in conflict zones. The document strongly condemns violence against civilians and emphasises that hostage-taking constitutes a violation of international humanitarian law. It calls on all parties involved in armed conflicts to uphold their legal obligations and take necessary measures to ensure the safety of women and children held hostage. Additionally, the resolution urges states to take immediate action to determine the fate and whereabouts of captives, while reinforcing accountability for war crimes. The resolution also seeks to enhance international cooperation, improve mechanisms for the release, rehabilitation and reintegration of hostages, and strengthen global efforts to safeguard their security and dignity. The UN Secretary-General will present a comprehensive report on the resolution's implementation at the 71st session of the Commission on the Status of Women.
Azerbaijan has sent a shipment of emergency firefighting equipment to Kyrgyzstan as part of a humanitarian aid mission. The assistance includes 10 specialised fire engines to help strengthen Kyrgyzstan's emergency response capabilities. The vehicles, which are designed for tough terrains, have been transported from the port of Baku and will support firefighting efforts in remote and mountainous areas.
Azerbaijan has dispatched emergency firefighting equipment to Kyrgyzstan as part of a humanitarian aid mission, following a directive from President Ilham Aliyev. The aid package, organised by the Ministry of Emergency Situations, includes 10 Kamaz brand specialised fire engines. The vehicles were shipped from the port of Baku via ferry and are being provided free of charge. According to officials, the assistance aims to support the strengthening of the Kyrgyz Ministry of Emergency Situations' logistical and technical capacity. The fire engines are fully equipped to tackle fires effectively, even in challenging terrains. Each vehicle has a large water tank and can transport a team of up to 6 personnel. Designed to operate in off-road conditions, they are particularly suited for remote and mountainous regions. Authorities say the vehicles stand out not only for their reliability, but also for ease of use and maintenance.
Well, that's all we have for now. Thank you for tuning in and keep watching A News.